This is Sweet Radio SVG, and you're listening to the program Pure Vincy. Pure Vincy is that program where we celebrate everything Vincentian, from our music to our food to our traditions, everything that you can think of that is uniquely Vincentian. We celebrate it here for 2 hours on the program called Pure Vincy. In the month of October 2021, we decided to do it a little differently. So what we have set out to do is to look at some Vincentian icons, true icons. And you know, from when we started broadcasting Pure Vincy Live, that was in 2019, we opened with this theme song. And what you're hearing now is Frankie McIntosh's cover of St. Vincent's I Love You, a Becket original. Now, this theme was not chosen by chance. It was a very deliberate choice. We wanted to celebrate two of St. Vincent's most iconic cultural persons, and that of Becket and that of Frankie McIntosh. And ever since we started Pure Vincy, it has been my dream, I'm telling you, it has been my dream to have Alston, Becket, Cyrus on the program. We spoke about it a while ago, and he said, Cleo, whenever you're ready, I'm ready. I am pleased to say today is that day when I can finally feature none other than Alston, Becket, Cyrus, our GI who went to Hawaii, on Pure Vincy on Sweet Radio SVG. Becket, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Cleo. It's an honor. And I'm just as touched to be sharing this program with you, because I thought you left radio too early. I'm happy when you came back.
Thank you so much. Maybe you were one of the inspirations. We'll never know. But here we are.
Yes. Happy anniversary. Happy Independence, 42nd anniversary.
Thank you. And the very same to you. The very same to you. I'm thinking, you know, that this song that we're listening to could perhaps be adapted a little and perhaps become our national anthem, something that is, again, more unique to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I like the anthem, the present anthem, and I don't know if I would want to say it for myself. Maybe it's up to people how they feel about it.
Maybe we have to do a referendum and see what people think.
A referendum first. I don't like, you know, it's a good song, and I didn't set out to make an anthem. And I think the two people, the Punnets, and that's the Miguel and Punnet.
Yes, Betty Punnett, Joel McGill, and Patrick Prescott, actually.
The people who wrote them. I just wrote something. Right. So I don't like to, and like I say, I like the anthem. I find we have a nice anthem, except for the part when we call the Grenadines our little sisters. I met people who just don't like those words, people from the Grenadines. I just need, if I may say that now, I would love all Vincentians. When people ask you where you're from, people from the mainland, don't say St. Vincent, say you're from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We are one nation, a multi-island nation, and we need to reflect that in our speech. And whenever we address our nation, we should be saying St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Whenever we speak about our nation.
I agree.
So that's the only part. And even when I made St. Vincent I Love You, it really should have been called St. Vincent and the Grenadines I Love You.
And so hence the rewrite a few years later.
Right, I did it all. Just make that correction.
the things that you have to offer. It's more than my heart's desire. Lovely beach, tropical breeze, always there, within my reach. I love you, SVG, Miss Sweet Little Nation, SVG. I love you, SVG, home of the blessed SVG. St.Vincent and the Grenadines. I love you. Can't look at the sunrise, can't look at the sunset. Sweet Mother Nature, such beauty, such splendor. Can't live my life with no fear. Freedom to go anywhere. You got love and you got peace. From lasso friend through the Grenadines. I love you, SVG, Miss Sweet Little Nation, SVG. I love you, SVG, home of the blessed SVG. St.Vincent and the Grenadines. I love you. Give it up for Mr. Julian Langley. Calypso and reggae, look here, to make me jaggy. Bamboo melody, having harmony. Night morning, Christmas and Carnival. You got so much bacchanal. Waiting time is any time, and any time is waiting time. I love you, SVG, Miss Sweet Little Nation, SVG. I love you, SVG. May I rule, SVG. St.Vincent and the Grenadines. I love you, mango guava jelly, early morning fish tea, coconut water, Fernanza Boca, Tito, crayfish and calago, sauce dumpling and manicoot, roast breadfruit, blackfish grips, and much, much more deliciousness. I love you, SVG, Miss Sweet Little Nation, SVG. I love you, SVG, home of the blessed SVG. St.Vincent and the Grenadines. I love you.
You became a full-time calypsonian in around 1975. Did you enter the calypso?
Not really, you know. I decided to make Calypso my career in 1975. But at that time, I was doing a day job and singing Calypso. And I have a fantastic story. I actually used to be so tired. I remember at one time, you work post office and you're working in the night, and the post office is one job. They pay you well, but when you're there, you have to work. You work every minute. The only time you can get an excuse is to go use the bathroom, and you have to come back. They time you then there too, so, and you have to hit a clock in and you clock out. So I was really tired, and I had one time I would fall asleep on going to work. One time I went to this christening party, and then I went to work from there, and I passed my work. We have to go to work, and I catch myself up in the Bronx, and I was going to like 86th Street in Manhattan. So I decided, and then sometimes people would call me in the daytime. They'll call me, and I'll call back later. Like say you call me, I will call back later, and they say, Cleo, did you call me? And really, I'd have been spoken to you between sleep and wake, and wasn't too sure. Anyway, long story short, after that incident after the christening party, I went way past my stop and came back down. I decided to go and see a doctor about it. And the doctor, he sent me for all the different tests, the typical American thing. They send you all over the place to test. So they send you by their bodies to do x-ray, because the body will make a buck on this whole thing, because the union, the post office paying for that, you know, your medical insurance. And the guy, he sent me for every test in the world, and he said, come back and see me in September, set a date. Because at the time, I went to see him because with all the different incidents that I was having a memory problem. And when I went in and sat down, the first thing the guy told me, he said, Mr. Cyrus, you think you have a memory problem, but you do not have a memory problem. If you had a memory problem, you wouldn't be here this morning. I told a lot of people this story, and not until I told it to Frankie McIntosh, he was out of one big laugh. I never thought it was funny that I told it to Frankie, because the guy was dead serious, the doctor was dead serious. But anyway, on the serious side, he told me that, he said, you're doing 2 full-time jobs. You see, being a creative person, you're writing songs, you're singing, and then you go to the post office, and the post office, you know, from experience, the post office is you can't go there and sneak around, and you have to give a full 8-hour shift when you get in there. And he said, you have to make a decision to go with one or the other. And that's when I left the post. That was 1983. I left the post office at that time.
Okay. So
75 to 83, I was, you know, doing a full-time job and singing Calypso on the side. But I used to have to tell, like Scotch, he told better lies than me. Scotch, I tell him, I felt guilty too, having to lie to when I have to have a show and lie and tell the guy I got stuck someplace and I was sick, and so I got tired of that. And Scotch say he used to dig up his mother and bury her again.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Less guilty.
Well, I think we are all thankful that you made that decision. Certainly, I'm sure it's not one that you came to regret at all.
No. And to go back to your date, I really checked my career from 75. I checked it when I really came in 75 as my start, yeah. But I actually I sang in 68, and I didn't make it past Peace Memorial Hall at the time from preliminaries. I think they wanted 10 people and I came 11th or something like that. Some story. Yes.
When did you start calling yourself Becket?
That's another thing. I call myself Becket. First, when I was toying with writing and singing, when I used to be a teacher at Hope School, I had a lunch bag. And this is all part of the process that you want to become a calypsonian. At the time, you know, you're doing everything. You're playing cricket, you're playing football, you're running, you're doing everything, but you're not sure which one. You love all these things and you're not sure which one you're going to go with. Although I wanted to be the calypso, was steel band first, then calypso. But my lunch bag, when I used to be a teacher, primary school teacher at Hope School down in the Vermont Valley. And I had a bag marked PPA. I think it might have been an airline or something. So I actually wrote Papa Alston. I put on an A after the P, an A after the second P, and then after the A, I put ALSTON. So my first calypsonian name was Papa Alston. Then I saw the movie Thomas Becket. which is a true story. The Archbishop of Canterbury, Richard Burton, played the lead role, and he was a man of principle, stood up against the king because the king was wrong, and the king eventually killed him. So I identify with that character. It's my kind of thing, a man of principle, right over wrong. So that's when I decided Becket was a nice thing. But I came back now in 75 and tried to get my own name. And by that time, I didn't want to be called. So I tell the mistake I made, I tell the guys at 705, Alston Cyrus, formerly known as Becket, forgetting that nobody really ever knew about Becket. And you couldn't get Becket out of their head. So the 705 folks, the Don Bobs, the Bernard John, Shirley Clark, and the others, they're the ones that insist I be called Becket.
Most of your songs, well, quite a few of your songs are very historical, but I don't know that any of them go as far back as your childhood. And I know in one of your most popular songs, you refer to a donkey copra. And I'm positive that that is something that we don't see anymore. What is a donkey copra?
Donkey copra is people who carry like coconut shell or coconuts in a sack, a big, or yam, when they have the big bags, the big sacks, not the fine sack, but the big sack. They put it on the donkey, or could be zabuka, could be anything in it, potatoes, anything, but it's heavy, so they don't put it, they put it the white side left to right. In other words, they don't put the long side, the head of the donkey, and then the back of the tail of the donkey. So it goes over the donkey back from left to right. And then to steady it on the donkey, they will put a string in there, pull it around, put like a cord, most time like a rope or some strong vine in the mountain. They will tie it to that sack, the back of the sack, the side closest to the tail of the donkey. And they will pass it around the donkey tail and come back up. So it actually making a lap around the donkey, the twine. And so that holds the sack in place. And then the guys, some of the guys now, sometimes they have like, they would jump and sit on that sack, on the sack, and go with the donkey.
Okay.
So if you visualize now a G string, it's similar like a G string. Yes, yes.
I understand. That's very visual. Now that you explain it, I get the visual right away. Tell me more about your childhood, Becket. Take us back.
Lots of, our childhood, you did 6 things in one day. You wake up in the morning, you put your buttons in your pocket, your marbles, and you go on, you're playing cricket with your marbles in your pocket, and then you go down to the sea, or we go up to the savannah to pick guavas and stuff like that. That was like a regular, you go up in the mountain, you pick mangoes, and you come back and you bathe in the sea. And then we had to, I tell people back in the day, we bathe every morning in the sea before we go to school. Because back then, not everybody had showers. Shower was a rarity. And so you gotta get up in the morning, jump in the sea, you come home, you dry your skin, and you go to school. Or you rinse off sometimes. Some people were able to rinse, but most of us had not. You dry your skin and you dress and you go to school. But the holiday time was cricket, football came later. Because football was not a rural game back when I was a kid. I actually was fortunate to learn soccer when soccer was introduced in the 60s, late 60s, or mid 60s.
Your songs, Becket, they cover several themes, but do you remember that 1968 song?
I sang tribute to Mike Finley, which is on one of my cricket albums. And Mike Finley, your first guest on this program, is one of my mentors, a guy I look up to and I admire, and I try to follow in his footsteps. He's
the one who told me that you have probably 15 songs on cricket. You're the Calypsonian with the most songs on cricket.
Yes, I remember him saying that in the interview, because that was a very good interview. I learned a lot about Mike that I really didn't know of.
Musicians come join with me, let's pay tribute to Mike Findlay. SVG come jump with me and pay tribute to Mike Findlay. I am sure you all remember the achievements made by this cricketer. Now come, let's join as one and pay tribute to the man. Oh, let us pay tribute to a great Vincentian, the greatest keeper to pass through the region. He made small island cricket start climbing the ladder. Battling injustices and pressure. A footballer, basketballer, this great wicket keeper, a sprinter, a long jumper, a superstar goalkeeper. I say we should crown this man, SVG's greatest sportsman. Every Vincy man and woman, time to come together as one and salute a true champion. I want you politicians to know, when you're talking about national hero, don't wait till Mike is dead to put no crown on his head. So let us pay tribute to this great Vincentian, the greatest keeper to pass through the region. He took the combined islands to the top of the ladder. He led the Tantimore encounter against England in St. Lucia. Finley proved a great keeper, so they dropped Murray, the world record holder. To take this man to Australia, for that alone we should crown the man, SVG's greatest sportsman. Playing New Zealand in Bimsha, no camera, no third umpire. The catch seemed spectacular, the umpire sent Glenn Turner. But Finley told the skipper, so Gary, he did not take the catch cleanly. Everyone thought it was a joke, they call him the Pope. Oh, let us pay tribute to a true sportsman, one of the fairest out of the Caribbean, an athlete of integrity. Win or lose, he played honestly. He's so cool, he's so humble, a great role model, a perfect example for all sports people. I am going to crown this man, SVG's greatest sportsman. The WICB cook up the conspiracy to bring back Derek Murray. They victimized Mike Findlay, but Findlay ignored all this and continued to play his cricket. We all know he was the best, so Murray played all the tests. Oh, let us pay tribute to a great Vincentian, the greatest keeper to pass through the region. He opened the door for the small island cricketer, while battling prejudicial torture. Zelda cricket and soccer, this quiet achiever, a very strong leader, a great team player. I am going to crown this man, the Caribbean's greatest sportsman. Let us pay tribute to this all-round sportsman, the best to pass through the Caribbean. No other one I know played so many games at such a high level. Mikey, I like the way he used to dive down the leg side, and I like the way he used to dive on the offside. In front, first and second slip. Right up at the stump for the fast bowler. You leave the crease, you expire. A spectacular goalkeeper. Wherever he played, he thrilled the spectator. It was such a beauty to see Mikey goalie, especially when he went flying in the field. A self-taught sportsman. Back then we had no coaches in the Caribbean. He retired early from regional play, so a young caddy could have his day. Let me say thank you, Mikey, for being a good role model for me. The whole SVG, we love you so much, dear Mikey. Mikey, 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 Mikey.
I went to sing in tribute to Mike Finley in 1968, and I planned really because one of the fastest calypsos I ever written, I ever wrote was is Notre Dame, a song I wrote it fast and never really got to the recording stage. I never really finished it completely because I wanted to win the calypso crown singing two sports songs. Tribute to Mike Finley, the cricket song, and his Notre Dame, the soccer song. But I never got past the preliminary, so that was just, and I never really developed that song. It's a song I really want to come back and record because I'm a diehard Notre Dame fan, and I don't think that the youngster, this generation, they're not even aware of Notre Dame. Some of them, and not even if they know the name, they're not aware of the great things. You know, they had some real superstars, players in the Notre Dame we talk about.
Well, Becket, to be very honest with you, although I'm not a youngster, I don't know the details either. Tell us about Notre Dame.
Notre Dame to me, is the greatest soccer team we ever had. We had maybe 7 players of Notre Dame not only played for St.Vincent at the same time, but they actually played for the Windward Islands. That's how good the team was. And they were the leading soccer team in St.Vincent in the 60s. And I would say maybe up to mid. Well, by the time I made a trip to America and came back, there were different teams happening there. But they had great teams that we would have heard of prior to Notre Dame. But for what I've seen, and I may be a little biased sometimes, I think, but I think Notre Dame is one of the greatest soccer clubs I've ever seen.
Who are some of the people on Notre Dame?
Norbert Hall, Rudy Boucher, Dougie Doyle, Dougie Cambridge, Vin Cupid. I think Cupid was his last name. Tai Sam, the late Sam DeBeek, he was the captain. And Leslie, I don't remember Leslie's last name at this time. And Hodge was the goalkeeper. But Notre Dame was I think Shaman was one goalkeeper also. Hodge, by the way, is Quicksilver, was a Calypsonian by the name of Quicksilver. He played soccer for that. So Notre Dame was just a superstar team. And they used to come from behind and win you. But the thing about Notre Dame, they played teamwork, the ball on the ground. And they would touch it around, pass it till they get to the goal, and then they would score. And when that didn't work, Vin Cupid would come last minute. Vinny probably hung up every goalkeeper that St. Vincent ever produced. and would equalize, you know, and then maybe 2-3 hang up goals and Notre Dame would win. Some great moments at soccer back in those days.
Becket, as I said earlier, you write on different things. You write on culture, you write on sports, you write on social issues, you write on world issues, relationships, on just how communities deal with people and community icons. Where do you get the inspiration on, and how do you decide that it is time to develop one topic rather than another?
Well, my very first album, I listened to critics, and then I would sing songs to people. Sometimes I let people, well, I say people, close friends, they would give them like maybe 10 songs and say which 6 you prefer. Or sometimes I have 5 verses in a song and I want to go with 3. Which 3 you prefer? Things like that. You know, I test people. I used to, when I first came out, I used to go and sing for guys. You know, sing at when we have a gathering, and I look at the response. Sometimes a guy would tell you one thing, but his reaction, his body language, saying something different. Maybe you don't want to tell you the truth because he's your friend. And then I even have an incident with Bishma. Well, this is at a later stage in my life that I would, when I finish mixing a song, I would go to Bishma and ask him what's his opinion for the technical part of it. If you hear enough bass, enough bottom, enough highs, those are language. That's the language in mixing and stuff. And Bishma would, you know, give his opinion, and I'll, you know, take it or leave it or make the adjustments. But Bishma one time complained. I said, boy, he used to come by me and this and that. I said, Bishma, you should happy I ain't coming again, because it's a sign that I know what I'm doing better now. If I come again, as a sign that I have improved, and you should be happy for that, you know?
Yes.
So, yeah, but in the topics now, the very first album I did, all except for Carnival History, they were all about women and make it funky. So out of 10 songs, 8 was all about women. So one of my friends, Charlie Crichton, he came back and tell me the people in Kingston and the people in Tongue, well, he lived in Tongue and stuff. The people, whoever you hear they talking, everybody think I sing too much about women. So I made sure, I took that as a very constructive criticism. I never really thought of that, because that was, when I migrated in 69, I left here, that was like the thing you hear the Sparrow, Kitchener to a less extent, but most of the songs were about the opposite sex. Mostly, and then 99% of the Calypsonians were men, so they mostly were about women, you know. So I took that as a positive thing, and I made sure my second album did not have on a single title about women. I did 6 songs, nothing about women. And it probably arguably my best album to date. It wasn't that's the album that released by Casablanca. So you have to listen to critics, and then again, I try to, one of the things I always try to do on every album is to put a ragga soca, well, what people call ragga soca now, I used to call it calypso, reggae calypso. Put one of those songs on every track, on every album. And then I always have at least one serious song on every album. Those are things I try to do. So you'll find, for example, we had Marianne. When I first met Frankie, I sang 2 songs for him, Coming High and Marianne. And he loved both songs, but he think for budgetary reason, and he think the 2 songs were too good to put on one recording. So let's just go with Coming High. And when we get around now, when Casablanca decided to make an album out of the whole project, we decided at that time that we weren't gonna, we pick out 5 other songs to make up the album. And Marianne, we kept pushing back Marianne until Marianne never got recorded till about 10 years after. So we always had songs in the pipeline, but I always try to balance out the album. Try to have Caribbean flavors and songs that we relate to the international audience lyrically, things that they would understand. Because when I was in the army in Hawaii, every Sunday I would sing on the beach. Used to go down there and jam with this guy called Jody Fiddler. And I used to try to analyze the audience, sing songs to them and try to figure out why is it they can't relate to a lot of the calypso. Why is it that Harry Belafonte was more famous to these people than Kitchener and Sparrow? And I'm a Kitchener Sparrow diehard fan, and I felt hurt. So I trying to see why is the reason the music didn't go further. And one of the things that I discovered is that the songs that had lyrics that they could relate to or they understood were the songs that they reacted to best. So I did all those things as sort of experiment, and then I tried to write international topics. You know, it was a learning. Yeah, it was a learning process, but I suppose because of your dedication to improving and to being a worldwide phenomenon, you were willing to take the time that was necessary to figure out how to perfect your craft. True. And it requires, I can see from that it requires a lot of introspection and humility
I know I'm probably going to get shot for this, but it is probably something that we don't see a lot of these days in our artists, and we wonder why they're not succeeding, and maybe this is the answer to that question.
Well, in their world and in their generation, they are succeeding, but we not in our time, we don't see them as successful, but you have to give them credit. I always tell people, one time I was doing an interview in Trinidad and they asked me about Machel Montano, and I say, I'm not the craziest guy about Machel Montano. The following this guy has, they have to be doing something right. If he cannot put on a show and get 10,000 people or 7,000 people, Talpri in Grenada get 7,000 people at an event every year, they have to be doing something right. And what it is, I don't know, because I would have jumped on the wagon if I knew what it was. But I am saying you have to give them credit. They have to be doing something right. It's just a generational difference. And I don't know. I still give them, I tip my hat to them.
Understood. Among the topics that you write on are some controversial topics. Let's just take a listen to this one.
I call this one Coming High. But you changed the name. What did you call it? Marijuana. What did you call it? Marijuana. Coming high, you all.
Becket, I have to tell you the truth. I was quite a youngster when I first heard this one. And somehow I realized that there was a lot of hushed tones when this song was being discussed. And I'm telling you the gospel truth, I didn't know what it was about. I knew that it was sweet, but somehow whenever I heard people talking about it, it was nobody really wanted to say much about it. My mother is a very conservative person, so imagine my shock when she tells me that this is one of her favorite Becket songs. And now that I know more about it, I'm going, what? Really? Now, how did you deal? Because in the 1970s, this is not something other than Peter Tosh. You were perhaps the only other person daring to deal with the topic. And you went on to produce Legalize It as well. What made you so brave, and how did you deal with it?
My song was before Peter Tosh too. Peter Tosh came out later in the year, according to my sense of history. I had Coming High first, and Legalize It was on the same album with Coming High. And Peter Tosh came with his Legalize It maybe a couple of months, even a year later. That's my history. But I not something I put my head on the block for. But for me, I just felt I try to do, when I'm doing a song, I try to put myself as a judge, to be fair. And people getting arrested and going to jail for marijuana, I didn't see marijuana more dangerous than alcohol, especially now in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Alcohol is far more dangerous to our young people than marijuana. I'm not an expert. That's just my opinion. So when I write on a topic like that, I try to give my views from my heart, from a truthful angle. But what we got here now that was a testing time for me, because luckily the public didn't go for the gimmick, but all that rapping and stuff was made up in the studio. My song didn't have that in there at all. The producer felt they wouldn't play it on the radio if I just sing a straight case of marijuana. But eventually that won out. When people heard the song, they just hooked on the marijuana word and went with it. I was lucky, but because Frankie and Tony convinced me, I didn't want to go forward with the recording. They say, man, you come too far, and everybody was excited about the rhythm tracks and the horns and everything that was laid on the production, of the work. And they say, you come too far to leave it alone. So they encouraged me to say, because the guy telling me, marry, do you wanna? And we don't say marry, do you wanna in the Caribbean. So I was so annoyed, and then when we got home, they started giving me jokes. They convinced me to go ahead and say it, and when we get home, they say, marry, do you wanna? But at the time, thanks to them, it turned out to be the better decision. But to get back to it now, I felt a very good friend, the same friend who advised me on about who told me about the too many women. I sing about there were too many women topics on the album, and he smoked marijuana at that time. He used to be a drinker, then he smoked marijuana, and his advice, he told me that marijuana to him was less dangerous than alcohol. And when I left St. Vincent, he was drinking alcohol, and he switched to marijuana. And he said now it doesn't affect his work, and that was good enough for me. It does not affect his work ethics, and that his brain function just as good when he get up the next day, and he get up without any hangover. So I felt that it was a positive thing for me to sing about marijuana, even though now a lot of medical experts, and you gotta respect their views. They still marijuana is still a negative for them, But and I'm not justifying marijuana, because I feel people who are involved in sports and stuff, you should take no kind of drugs, not marijuana, not alcohol. You really, if you're an athlete and your ambition is to go far in this world, you don't need those things. Go with the natural. That would be my pick.
But there was a fallout from the Coming High song. And I often wonder, because I have read and heard on different occasions that Coming High is the song that was originally being put forward for In the Deep, but eventually they went with Disco Calypso. Do you think the theme of the song had anything to do? I know the official story is that it was the tempo of the song, but do you think the theme of the song had anything to do with it not being used?
If that was the case, then that it never came back to us as that. They went back and did an up-tempo version of Coming High with just instrumental with Frankie. He did an up-tempo version and they did not go for that. They just felt when they got it, it wasn't there. But when they tried to hook up the soundtrack to the scene that they were using, now this is a scene of a motorcade or going through Bermuda, going to an annual cricket game, which I think is every Boxing Day they have this big cricket game in Bermuda. So they were filming along the street with people going to that, and Coming High was too slow for that. Now, what you say, I never heard that version before, but it may be true, but they never told us that. They just said it was too slow for the scene. And at the same time, we had just finished the Calypso Disco song, and they said they would go with that because that fit the tempo. Which, Calypso Disco is a faster song than Coming High, and that fitted the scene better, and they went with it. So,
how did you deal with the controversy? How did you deal with the controversy that Coming High spawned?
That Coming High caused?
Yes.
Well, I would say it was lucky. We were lucky because it got played. I think they never played it on radio in St.Vincent, but I know in Trinidad, it was a big hit in Trinidad. Even Independence Day, according to my relatives in Trinidad, Independence Day, during the Independence Parade, the police band played it. And it was a big, it was accepted by the people. But right after that, they banned it. But by that time, the horse had already gotten out the gate. The horse already left the gate, so the song was already big in Trinidad and Tobago, a massive hit all over. It's because the song came out here in June, July, and they would have banned it at the end of Independence in Trinidad is the 31st of August. So we talk about almost 3 months of April. So it's on everybody's lips. And Trinidadians already, they like the party, and they anything with controversy they like. So by that time it was too late.
Becket, I noticed, I have searched and I may be wrong, but I'm not seeing any gospel in your vast repertoire. I can't say that I've seen any recorded gospel.
I have a gospel song and I'm trying to get there right now. I'm trying to turn my life around. I am more religious conscious now, but I would say God conscious, not religious. I'm not really deep into religion. I'm more God-fearing than ever before. I do daily devotions, I pray and everything, and I wouldn't want to sing a gospel song telling people to serve God and I'm still singing, doing the bacchanal stuff still, So whenever you hear me come out with gospel, it'll be gospel for the rest of my life. This morning, I have a gospel song that has been in my head for years, and that's like I have several songs in my head for years that I never come to the writing and the production, so I haven't written it yet. But the melody, the chorus, and the storyline is there. So, but it's something I am trying to touch on. I pray about it every day to turn my life over to God.
I understand. So you, at all times, your philosophy is to be true to yourself, and if you're in party mode, you're in party mode, and once you touch that gospel genre.
When these guys sing this and come back and they sing in the background and stuff, I don't think you can do that. I think you can't do that to God.
Understood. There will be no flip-flopping from Becket.
No.
We touched on this song a lot. Let's listen to a little bit of it before we talk in more detail. as you said, originally Coming Higher was the one that was earmarked for In the Deep, and then eventually they went with Calypso Disco, which was to Disco Calypso in the movie. How did that whole arrangement develop?
Well, we did Coming High. We got this guy who had mixed Taurus Lego. His name was Buddy Scott. He was the engineer that mixed Taurus Lego for Short Shot. So I would listen to, when I listen to other people's music, I would listen for the mix and the quality of the production. And I was very impressed with the way the guy makes Taurus Lego. So I tried to track this guy down to mix my next project, which the next project was Coming High. Now, his name was Buddy Scott. He would have been exposed. He's an American, Caucasian American. He would have been exposed to Short Shot by going to Antigua with one called Al G, who was the program director of WLIB, famous WLIB in New York, who played a pivotal role in getting Calypso exposed on a higher level to a wider audience in New York, to the Americans. So when we mixed Coming High, Buddy Scott felt that this song was too good a song just for a Caribbean audience. So he had a friend by the name of Larry Maxwell, who turned out to be was Dennis Brown, the reggae artist's manager. And Larry Maxwell was a very nice gentleman. He was from California, managing Dennis Brown, and he knew some people in Casablanca Records. So he took the song and went to shop it with Casablanca Records. Casablanca Records, Neil Bogart at the time, who was the owner of Casablanca Records. He was the Casablanca Records was the producer of the movie The Deep. So they sort of like used The Deep as a vessel to promote the new Becket, the album, this new artist. So that's how that happened.
And apart from this Calypso Disco that made In the Deep, you have other tracks that were used in sitcoms and on night shows, talk shows in the US. And those are songs that we have not, those are the accomplishments that we are perhaps less familiar with. Can you give us a bit more insight about those things?
Well, a lot of it would, the most famous thing, and because of it, I think it was my most rewarding monetarily, my most rewarding project, Ooh La La. Someone stole Ooh La La and sold it to Disney as their song. So that was played at Disney World over and over again. And I was trying for years to track down to find out, because people go to Disney World and come back and tell me, I heard this song in the street parade. I didn't have an idea what the street parade was. So one day I decided, after so many years, friends would go from Canada, they'd call, what we were at Disney World. Anyway, when at the end of that, they were playing at Disney World, but somebody sold the song to them as it's their song. But because they filmed an episode of the show called Full House at Disney World, and they filmed it at the street parade, and they were coming down, and that's when I was able to go to Disney and tell them, well, hey, I've been hearing this for years and blah, 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 you all deny it and this and thing. So we have you now in a video. Somebody had called me and tell me, your song was in that show last night, but it was actually sung in the street parade by whom I couldn't tell you. But somebody we got to the bottom of it, and the only bad thing about it, Disney claimed they didn't know who sold it to them, because we wanted to get that person. But you know, we got compensated, and they went back and credited me as the writer and as the publisher for the song. So it paid some good. It was quite rewarding at one time compared to the other songs. It brought it to the top.
And in addition to Full House, your music appeared on other sitcoms as well?
Also, the Jay Leno, the Tonight Show with Jay Leno, somebody stole Teaser Day again, play that song, they do that instrumental version of Teaser, and they put it on Jay Leno thing, and the NBC settled with us. We got the money, they paid us. My lawyer went after them. So, and then we've had the Spanish version of Teaser. I mean, a couple of years earlier, I could have tell you the name of the El Mundo or something like that. The Spanish people, you know, they had versions of it, but they came to us. That it was no case of it. Before they did the production, they came to us and asked permission to use the Spanish version of it.
In your early days, you were hauled off the coals a little for making so many of your songs about women. But there's also this one.
Mama.
Tell us about Mama. Very special woman. Tell us about Mama.
The nicest human being God ever put on the earth. She was my mother and my father. She had 8 beautiful children. 4 girls, 4 boys. I'm the first. I'm the spoiled one. I was the first son, the first nephew, first grandson. And when you're the first, you get real spoiled. But I couldn't ask for a better person. And just about everything I own, she gave to me. Even my first guitar. She never discouraged me. When I was a little boy and she going to Barley to Dutchy Brothers, I tell her I want to go and she carried me. And I just stood up there and watched Dutchy Brothers, the famous Dutchy Brothers out of Trinidad. I watched the Scratcher Man playing all night and so things like that. That was my calling, but she never tried to say, well, you can't go, you're too young and this like that. So I was spoiled in a sense. But people would tell you, like you hear psychiatrists tell you by exposing the child so early, it's child abuse, it's neglect, it's all of that. But that was my calling. I didn't know it at the time, but I was interested in it. And I just a wonderful. I could spend all day talking about my wonderful human being.
What is her name?
Paul Cyrus. But she carried it on a walk in America for people listening overseas, because when you travel, back then, you can't carry your father title unless you're a lawful child and all of that. But she carried, in America, she was on a walk. But we call her Miss Paul. That's the famous thing. All the children call her. And I was the last to call her Miss Paul. But this kind-hearted woman, she be nice to everybody. When she meet people on the street, we say, why are you giving this guy money? This guy is gonna buy drugs. She say, don't you worry about that. I give him whatever you want to do with it. That is his business. I ain't worrying about that. I feel good that I give. Person would look like they need some money and she'll give it to them.
Again, how did she reconcile herself with some of these topics that you sang about?
I must tell you, she never really questioned. Her favorite was St. Vincent, I love you. And my mom, the key thing I didn't tell you about my mom was the best singer in the family. If my mom had gone to America earlier, she would have been a big singer. My mother would stay in a funeral service and pitch a song, pick it up, sing one. There was one funeral we went to, a cousin of mine, Carl Simon. He passed away. And my mother went there and she picked, I never heard the song before and I have not heard the song since. But she was by the graveside and she picked out and sang this song, and not a soul moved, not a soul said anything. They just listened to my mother sing the entire song all the way down. And she used to sing, she would sing all these songs, and the neighbors in America would tell her, well, she didn't go in for the opera and stuff like that. She was a very, very good singer. I think I would place myself third. I have an uncle who was a very good singer also. I think I was like the third in the family when it comes to singing, because my uncle, well, he was a very good singer also, but my mother I look back now and wish I had produced a recording with my mom and with my uncle. But you're so busy getting myself out there. When I look back now, they're gone. The great beyond.
You have had, since 1975, up to this time, a string of road march hits, starting in 75 with Mass at Victoria. And you've also had your successes with your soundtracks, whether legally or illegally. You've had songs that just grab people. What goes into a successful road march?
Well, the funny thing, I never sat down and said, I'm going to write a road march. I like to write catchy songs that as soon as you hear it, you must like it. And I think that is what carried them into Road March, because when a song has to grow on you, it takes a while. Sometimes the song grows on you, Carnival gone. So I always try to, although some people like Wallace Christopher always tell me my songs grew on him. But I would be always amazed when he says that, because I always try to write catchy songs. But to correct you, Mass at Victoria was not a road march. It should have been a road march, but back then you had to be living in St. Vincent to win. And then a couple of years down the road, Coco was a road march. It took years, almost a decade after, before people would tell you, well, Coco definitely was the only road march in 1981. So there was so much bickering, and then one time they say you have to be living home for 6 months before you could win road march, and one set of nonsense. If they had applied those rules to Kitchener, we wouldn't have had so many road marches.
Road march.
The rules that like I heard some of the good songs like Coco. Well, Coco later became a road march, but who would ever believe that Horn for Them was not a road march?
Well, I'm a little dumbfounded here, because I thought somewhere in the back of my mind I had it filed away as one of the road marches.
Yes, but Vincy Carnival 64 Fun Rhythm Gallo, something that CP sang.
Oh, that was 1984, right?
That song was the biggest song in the country, the biggest song on the road, but they had rules and regulations saying that if you weren't here for X amount of months, you can't win and stuff. So it was like a little punishment, you know.
For being abroad,
Yeah, but life goes on.
Life goes on, and you move on, and you go to bigger and better, like this one, right?
You come inside the people fest. We dance all night until we wet. But when I ask you for your number, you have a negative answer. Girl, you ain't nothing but a teaser, a dirty, dirty teaser. I love the way you dance the soca, but you ain't nothing but a teaser.
Vincy songs of all time, and perhaps one of your biggest, not so?
Well, I think it's the biggest.
In 1990, in St. Vincent, incidentally, you seem to be competing against yourself. There was Teaser and there was Gal Rush Me. Tell me that story.
Well, up to a couple days ago, I had a conversation with Chief, Calypso aficionado, if you want to give him that title. And I am trying to tell him, and I tell a lot of people, it's a good thing both songs are mine because Gala Rush Me won the road match. Gala Rush Me was played more on the road than Teaser. People will say I'm crazy, but one judge, I call a name to Chief, but I won't call it in this medium. He told me that year, people don't know, the CDC had a rule in 1990 that they were, because they suspect things around the park was less than on being on the level. Things weren't on the level at the park. So that year they decided they would not check road march in the park. They check it on the street. So regardless to who, if the band want to pull out a song and play it, when the bands ask for a song, the DJ pull out one song and play his choice that he want to push. A lot of that goes on at Victoria Park. Anyway, there's one of the judges met me at Victoria Park and he said, boy, we have this rule this year that I didn't check in road march wrong here, but the amount of time I hear in teaser wrong here, I have to score it. It's a good thing. Both songs are mine. But I know all the steel bands in St. Vincent in 1990, Panorong Neck and the little small steel bands too, they came in town playing Gala Rush Me. They didn't teaser catch on at the right time, a couple days before Carnival, and it just came from behind and got a little popular. But being played on the road and according to the rules in 1990, Gala, and I would tell people that it's a good thing. All three songs are mine because Too Much Iron was a close third.
Contender. So maybe Wallace Christopher was right. Some things do grow on you because Teaser did not start out first from the blocks.
Well, true. And Teaser would have gotten there because of the beat. And I got one message and I told that to Chief too. When I got to Leyu, before I even got into the house I was renting, a guy met me and said, Denny called from America and said, push Teaser. Because Denny had not played on that album. But I usually would leave an album for him before I leave America to come for Carnival. So he heard Teaser. He sent a message, tell somebody, long stop me soon as I come to St. Vincent. He said, push Teaser, push Teaser. But what we have to remember that Gala Rush Me was a big slang in St. Vincent in 1990. That's how I managed to do the song. Because every day, I used to eat by my cousin, and every night I go up there to eat, I hear they talk about Gala Rush Me. So one day I asked, what is this Gala Rush Me all about? The saying is about a haircut. Them new haircut, they call it Gala Rush Me, and then if the haircut is nice, they call it Haga Rush and all this. So I say, boy, that's a good title for Calypso. And then I had this melody for years. Was a song about Small Island. Where Vivi from? Small Island. Frankie McIntosh. Small Island. Andy Roberts. Small Island. Small Island man. Really strong. Small Island man is a champion. Now, the Small Island guys had established themselves, so they were way beyond a song. They didn't need a song to bring them up. So I say, boy, let me take this melody and switch it to Gala Rush Me. And that's how it be. And I was in good shape to finish writing most of the album by that time. And that's how it came into being.
So there are three things there that I could see, three keys that I could see as the perhaps successful Gala Rush Me. As you said, you tried to write something catchy, and picking up on what was a current slang, no doubt had some impact on the success of the song. And the other thing was what you said, you tried to include at least one ragga soca on your album. And back then, right, and back then, ragga soca was breaking through and everything had to have a little dub on it. And the dub was just, I think, that the right formula for, yeah. I think that was also, and then you had the name Becket.
Right, but
with that combination, how could you go wrong?
You analyze it quite well. You did a good job. I am, but I do these things not because I want to win road march, because I went to the rap on there because I thought it was a good idea. But some people would say that's the first rap, but I have a guy who convinced me. He was videotaping a gentleman who lives in Montreal now. And he convinced me that he videotaped me around Victoria Park. Long before Gal rushed me with I brought up a little boy to rap. So the rapping was there. And the funny thing, you know, I have back to my cousins in Trinidad. One cousin told me one time, a couple of years ago, Explain I did over Lorraine, and he had a version with a rapper on there. And she's telling me, why don't you put some rap on your calypsos too? And I had rap on my calypso 10, 15 years ago. So
from coming high.
Yeah.
From coming high.
Well, that's what the guy in Canada, his name is Jack Day. He was one of our top table tennis players years ago, one of the top sportsmen in the country. Played some cricket also. But he's a videographer. He did my
Jack Day songs. He lives in Montreal now.
So yeah, he told me that he said, man, you had rap. He said, you bet you can't tell me the first time you had a rap. And I tell him, well, coming high, I did the rap on that, but it wasn't something planned. And he said, no, man. He said, you bring up a youngster in St. Vincent. It's such and such here, Frankie. And I remember the show we did was a fundraiser for the Rotary Club. But I don't have no memory of that at all. But he showed me the footage. He had the footage of a little guy about maybe not more than 10, 12 years old. And the guy did a hell of a job.
In 1990, well, Teaser took off. And I mean, it took you all over the world, and so many different things came about as a result of Teaser, including Record of the Year, Best Party Tune. Becket, you were contending with people like Leston Paul and Shabba Ranks and Tambu and Barrington Levy. Describe to me the feeling of sitting there, knowing that you are contending with these people, and you're the small island man. Yes, you're a champion, but we're champions in our own minds. Describe the feeling to me, sitting there waiting for the announcement.
I never felt small island. I never felt that part of, not to throw cold water on your thoughts, but I never looked at it that way. I felt I was going to win. The only disappointment, Frankie didn't show up, but he won Best Arranger too. And we won Best Party Song. But I knew Teaser. Remember, I'm in New York, and all the names you call it, they may be big artists, but they weren't, the songs weren't big in New York. I guess because it was in New York. And so Teaser was a runaway big song in New York. So I never felt like an underdog and all that other stuff, because I felt like I was a winner already. That was the feeling at the time.
The nominees for Record of the Year 1990 are
1990 David Rudder.
1990, will we see you tomorrow?
Teaser by Becket.
Welcome Home, Carly Davis.
To Experience by Barrington Levy.
To experience, we taking for a stroll.
Watch Out My Children, Rash Shorty Eye.
Twice My Age.
And my daughter.
Shabba Ranks and Crystal.
As I go my way, I don't care what they say. I'm in love.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is with proud pleasure that we present the winner. The winner, Teaser, Becket.
Well, you ain't nothing but a teaser. A dirty, dirty teaser. I love your reggae, love your slogan.
And when the announcement was made, what was that feeling like?
It was a great moment, because you know, it have people like John Blake. John Blake is a Trinidadian radio pioneer in Washington, D.C. He did the liner notes on my first album. And when I approached him to do the liner notes, he never knew of Becket. He had no idea who I was. And he just took it and he told me he would listen to the stuff and, you know, be honest about it. So he was there on stage, and there's another guy, Barnes. He's Jeff Barnes. I think his name is Neville Barnes, but he's out of Florida. These are people that been been behind Becket for years. That I never met bands until that night, and they were all on the stage, and Holly Thomas, who was one of the back vocalists on Coming High, the original Coming High. And so it was like, what was so good about that, and Sparrow, my mentor, he was in the audience. So I was really more thrilled with that than anything else to see. And when it came down that I met Cicely Tyson that night, although I call her out a kid in error. So it was all that. And I tried to speak to Judy Mott, and she ignored me as if I didn't exist, which was a sad night, but they were all jealous of Calypso. So I knew where that came from. They weren't happy that Calypso did so well at that first Caribbean Music Award. And so I got caught in the moment when all these people, you look at the video, all these people who've been behind me, Holly Thomas, Jeff Barnes. No, Neville Barnes. Jeff Barnes was also there. He was backstage. That's the other Barnes, Neville Barnes' brother. And the other name was called in there. Oh, John Blake and Holly Thomas, who did the back vocals. So we had to see all these guys on the stage with me, as it was a plan. People who just went. That the fact that they knew I was from the small island, but they gave me that respect all along, and they happened to be there that night. They weren't handpicked to say, well, Becket gonna win, and you have to be here. The guy named, I know I was calling the wrong name. His name is Winston Barnes. That's Jeff Barnes' brother.
Okay.
And Jeff Barnes was backstage too, and he had his own little gripe that night too, which I really don't. I think maybe it's all about Calypso did so well that night, and so I was really, so happy that people who played a part in building Becket, were all present that night, as if it was divine guidance to have them there. It wasn't planned. So that part of it was lucky for me. But the other things about, I think I was more nervous in 75 in Victoria Park than that night, because by 75, by the time I come into town, they take the country by storm. Everybody like this young little fellow from out in LAU and come back from America. And by the final, Nigerian people saying, dust up Victoria Park for semi-finals. By the finals now, they say, boy, he going to take that crown back to America. you wonder if people going to, that kind of shock you. But it wasn't as if I was in Trinidad. And you figure, but you're in New York, in neutral ground, yeah. And then it's a big hit in New York, so I didn't have those kind of thing. And then I was never really, till this day, hooked on competition. I just tried to do my best for every song, and I never was one. In the army, we have something called supernumeral. When you go to the parade, or you go to and you look the best, they give you something called best dress. And the guys we getting ready for parade, and forget what they call it. That's how important it was to me. But these guys, we had 4 of us, Ketishan, 2 Trinis, and myself. We together from the Caribbean. And how we met was a long story. But they spit shining and pressing and thing. And lo and behold, I cleaned my shoe, but I didn't spit on it a lot and do all the other shine. It was shiny enough. And I won best dress. And I wasn't going for that. And they became cool with me after that. So I'm not always about the competition fight down and that kind of thing. Was never one for the rivalry that people try to create between me and Touch and other people. And then if you even look at that, and you look at the music world, nobody would judge me and Touch in the same category, because they are a band and I'm a solo artist. So we never get judged in the same forum. So things like that. And I never really get deep down into the competitive things of. So I guess when you're that conscious, then the nerves and stuff come with it,
You've broken several barriers as a Vincentian, as a small islander. I know you don't like the term, but it is what it was back then. and to be performing in Trinidad and Tobago as a man from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, albeit living in the US with different connections, which perhaps would have made your passage easier, you were able to perform in a tent in Trinidad and Tobago, which was basically the sacred and hallowed domain of Trinidadians. How did you get into the Spectacular Forum in Trinidad and Tobago?
Well, I went to Spectacular because I was at Sparrow met me in Antigua. I was singing Don't Ease Up. Don't Ease Up was a big hit in Antigua. And I went there to perform on the strength of Don't Ease Up and met several people. And then Sparrow was impressed with the popularity of the song. I just liked the song. And he called me, tell me come down to Trinidad. He want me to come to sing. And he wanted me to come sing this song in the tent. And by the time I got there, by the time I got to his tent, I had come in high. But after he told me all this thing and plan, I got down there. Sparrow didn't even remember, he didn't remember Doiza. So, and then he have this guy, this strong man, he's the stage manager. He decided to put you on day or not. And every night, and I am in Trinidad in his tent, and every night they announce me, people, they have a sigh of surprise. They didn't expect me to be there because I'm not advertised, I'm on no flyer. I don't know why they would do these things, but I go there every day because I want to get across to the people, and the people love me. So I go and I sing every night in spite of these things. You know, they get this surprise thing every night and announce me. And then a band from the East named New Tones, they played the song. They played Ooh La La. And from the time they played that song and they got to the finals, they came third. Everybody thought they won, but because they played an outside song, they put them third, they placed them third. But from the time New Tones played that song, every night they said the whole place started screaming, and the rest was history. So I wasn't happy with the way they treated me. And I went and approached the Martino brothers, Frank and Claude, who were the owners of Spectacular. And they were so happy, and they were happy to have me because Frank Claude, who was the older brother and the top guy in the whole thing, he said he's a Lord Nelson fan. And when he go down to Sparrow Tent and see they have Lord Nelson sitting on the bench, not singing, it used to hurt him because he know Lord Nelson is a very dynamic performer, which is true. So, and then I went there after that. I just got in there, and Spectacular was like the icing on the cake in Trinidad. I've had some great other times in Trinidad. All my 10 times in Trinidad were very good. But to getting over to Spectacular, and we had a good, I sang with them for about 3 years, and then when I had Tone, they stopped me from coming. It's another business thing. I don't want to get too deep into it because they were like brothers, and they treated me well. And that is sometimes you don't want to highlight the negative. And then remember now, I was coming off of Ooh La La, so they would have been happy to have me. Because Ooh La La was
talking about Spectacular Forum, I've been talking to a couple of people about the fact that I'm going to be interviewing Becket, because this is a big deal for me. And so everybody has their story about them and Becket and them and Becket. Well, this story, I know you're not going to remember it, but I had to commit it to memory so that I could tell you about it. You were in Spectacular Forum, and a certain group of people were at university in those days in Trinidad and Tobago. So they heard that one Alston, Becket, Cyrus was going to be performing at Spectacular Forum. So they rushed down to Spectacular. And there is Becket belting out, ooh la la, and they're going wild because their homeboy is in Spectacular Forum in Trinidad. So the show is finished, and they're outside by the gate waiting, trying to stalk you. And eventually you come out, Becket! And they said you was more than gracious. You didn't have a clue who they were, but you recognized the accent. You say, you from St. Vincent? And the person said he didn't know me. But that just made my day, and it is a moment that I will never forget. And I suppose, again, we come back to your humility and your graciousness and your showmanship, in that you made everybody, people came to see you because you recognize the voice. and you made them feel as if they were the most important person in the world. So I just had to share that with you.
Without the people, we are nothing. So you have to make your fans happy. Was the down to earthness? I've seen it. I think that's one thing I copied from Mike Finley. You know, I say earlier that he was a mentor. Viv Richards is one of the very, very down to earth person, and I heard that from other cricketers.
1983, Trinidad and Tobago. Indian girl, come in town for carnival, dropping a Tuesday band. That is how I met Susan, singing a simple melody, lyrics simple and catchy, telling everybody to join and sing with she.